and welcome into the Sunday Journal. I'm your host, Matt Pitta. Thanks for being with us today. On this edition of our program, we get together each week to talk about issues facing Cape Cod, the islands, and all of southeastern Massachusetts. Welcome into the Sunday Journal. Today, we've got a great feature to talk about, and it involves a tradition here on Cape Cod with our Cape Symphony. The 6th New Year's Day concert is featuring the Ghostess with the Mostest, Marni Nixon. Some of the most famous songs from the most noted musicals of the 50s and 60s were not actually sung by the person named in the credits, like West Side Story, The King and I, and My Fair Lady. Most people watched these top-billing movies marveling at what they think is Natalie Wood, Deborah Kerr, or Audrey Hepburn's voices. Actually, behind them all was Marni Nixon, a powerhouse vocalist dubbed the Ghostess with the Mostest by Time magazine, and the Cape Symphony's guest star at next month's New Year's Day party on January 1st. And we're excited to have Marni Nixon coming to Cape Cod, and an honor to have Marni with us here today on the Sunday Journal. Marni, thanks so much. It's a pleasure to speak with you on the phone today. Thanks for being with us today on my program.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
We're so excited to have you down here, and I'm learning a lot about your story, Marni, as I was preparing for this interview this week. And the Ghostess with the Mostest, how did that all come about?
Well, first of all, the title, The Ghostess with the Mostest, was named by Time magazine by some reviewer who went up to Seattle, where I was singing with the Chamber Symphony, and they wrote an article in Time magazine and entitled Ghostess with the Mostest, and that stuck with me all the rest of my life. It's because of the dubbing that I've done in those movies that you mentioned. And other things that I've done dubbing-wise, but mainly those films, and so that handle has stuck with me.
So, Marni, let's talk about your background. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to be this person who literally was singing for some of the biggest A-list talent in Hollywood. Talk to me about your background, Marni.
Okay, well, I started out as a violinist in a very musical family. We all played instruments from the time we were about 4 years old. We had a family orchestra, and then we moved into other symphonies that were around. This was in Los Angeles, California. They had the training orchestras for young musicians that I was a part of, and then they had a lot of the directors from the various movie studios attending our rehearsals, and I used to get up from that orchestra and sing arias that they would get parts for, and I would learn, and then I would get up from the violin section, and they offered me a job as a messenger girl at MGM, which I turned down until after I graduated from high school. But in the meantime, I was then, when I was 10 years old, I decided to sing at a contest at the Pomona State Fair, and won that contest singing because I forgot my violin. On the way down, my sister was going to play for me, and she said, well, I'll play the Blue Danube Waltz, and then I sang that at 10 years old and got some money. It was, I think, $100, which was great money in those days. I thought I'd never made that before. And a Coast to Coast Network broadcast, and I decided, I'm going to become a singer. And I didn't have to practice so much, I thought. Ha, ha, ha. It was going to be easier. Ha, ha, ha. And then I was one of the members of the Roger Wagner Chorale there in Los Angeles. Started singing oratorio and things with the various symphonies that were there with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and our chorus. I was soloist with them, and so gradually it developed from that, and then I started doing extra work in the movies, and then I started just doing sound work, and then they called me in at one point to do the dubbing for Deborah Kerr. Was the first one in, the first big one in The King and I. And then I got paid what I thought was a lot of money in those days. I didn't get any residuals on that soundtrack, though. And then the next big thing I did was West Side Story for Natalie Wood. And then after that, I did My Fair Lady for Audrey Hepburn. None of them getting credit on the screen, but gradually the word got around, and so I got to be known that way, even though my main career at that point was concert singing and opera that I was doing around there, and also traveling around the country doing opera and stuff.
Marni, you were dubbing for some of the biggest names in stage and screen at that time. And as a young woman, what was that like? Take us into that world of what it was like. Was there any type of, when the actress would learn that they were going to be overdubbed or they were not going to have their voice on? Was there any type of hard feelings and all? Take us into that world of being right there with the top leading ladies of stage and screen.
Well, I got spoiled because the first really big one was with Deborah Kerr, who was very aware that she could not cut some of the songs. She could sing, but in a very light way, and her voice could not sustain the emotion that the character portrayed. So anyway, she was very happy to have me there, and she taught me everything what she was doing acting-wise in every point of every scene, and we rehearsed very carefully together, stood side by side, singing the songs as we rehearsed them on the sound stage. Then she went to the recording stage and recorded it herself when they were on the sound stage, and then she went to film the scene, and she had to mouth to that soundtrack when it was filmed. So there's a lot of processes here, and then sometimes if that doesn't work out, you have to come back to earphones when the picture is finished and dub that in. But mainly it's pre-recorded, and then she has to mouth to that pre-recorded track.
So you would lay the track down, and then the track would then be played as they were doing the filming of the actual movie.
Exactly, and then they can stop and start, and they still then put that all together and combine it in the last instance.
Would you be on set as it was being filmed in case you were needed? Would they ever have to do another immediate redub, or would you have to stand in and do it live while it was filming? Were you basically alongside?
No. When it's filmed, she is doing the mouthing, and there's a little man under the camera who is watching her lips to see whether she's mouthing perfectly to it. And then if she's not, they stop the take, and she has to mouth to it again. Now, sometimes then afterwards the picture is re-edited, and so then I have to come back to earphones and look at the picture and then match my lips to her image already filmed.
Would you Would you interact with them beyond just that, Marni? Would you get together after, and were there any type of social engagements or social interactions with people like Natalie Wood and Audrey Hepburn?
Well, with Deborah Kerr, as I said, she was very helpful, and we worked for about 6 weeks, meaning a week per song, so that I could get exactly what she was doing, where she was walking, whether she was sitting down, what her emotions were, before she even recorded that. But in the case of Natalie Wood, she did not want to be dubbed all the way. She knew that I should be doing the high notes, but she expected to record her own voice. So we had to sneak that into the studio, into the working of the pre-recording, meaning that I was there when the orchestra was recording the songs. They would have her sing the complete song, and then they would say, okay, now Marni, it's your turn, and what we're going to do is then take from this take that you're going to make, we're just going to insert that into the film for the high notes as needed. And then they would turn to me and wink, and Natalie didn't see that, and I realized that was really not going to be the case, so that when I recorded actually they then they didn't use those takes. They had her sing to her own soundtrack during the filming of the picture, sometimes her lips not even being in sync with her own soundtrack. And then they had me come after she was already filmed back. I had to come back, and then to earphones, I had to then dub in the songs again to her having filmed it. The problem was that she sometimes was not in sync with her own soundtrack, so her lips were sometimes not quite exactly with the track, and so then I had to choose when I came back to do the redubbing to kind of hedge a little bit so that I could be with her lips, but with the orchestra, and because her lips were not quite with the orchestra, they said, "Oh, well, Marni, you've got such iron nerves, you fix up." It was just impossible. But anyway, we made it work, and then I did some of her dubbing for her acting later on, and then in My Fair Lady, it was another case of Audrey wanting to do a lot of her own singing, very aware that she may not be able to cut it. So she was taking voice lessons all the time, to which I could be present, and I could sit there and get to know her speech pattern and listen to her, the timbre of her voice, and try to change my voice to imitate that fabric of her voice, so that then a couple times she dubbed the picture to her own track, which was like in Wouldn't It Be Lovely? That was her track that she originally filmed to, but then they threw that all out, and then I had to come back to soundtrack and dub in my voice. But there was a lot of that film that was already my voice in most of the choruses of all the other songs.
Marni, we have a couple moments. We have a couple moments left with Marni Nixon. And Marni, this is some great stories you're telling us about. Marni is going to be appearing with the Cape Symphony coming up on January 1st, known as the Ghostess with the Mostest. Marni telling us these stories about how she was dubbing for people like Audrey Hepburn, Deborah Kerr, and Natalie Wood. And again, we have just a couple moments left. Marni, I understand that basically, as this was going on, you were told basically keep quiet about this, right? Don't make a big deal. Don't go out and tell a lot of people that this is what you're doing, right?
Right. The studios called me, especially during the My Fair Lady, the King and I time, which was a little earlier, and dubbing had not been known to even be going on in the movies. Everybody thought that whenever you heard a voice or an actress, that was their voice. But they had been dubbing like this for years. But there was no credit ever given because they thought it would take away from the sale of the picture. So I had to sign a contract to have no credit at all in the film.
Wow.
But by that time, it got around. Other people talked. The orchestra talked. They didn't know what was in my contract. And then I could say, when I was being interviewed for another engagement, they said, "Well, we heard that you did the dubbing for so-and-so," and I would say, "Well, my contract forbids me to say anything," which of course is admitting guilt, but I wasn't saying anything, so I got away with it.
Marni, tell us what's going to be on tap on January 1st. What do you have featured for the Cape Symphony?
Well, the Cape Symphony is just a magical program. It consists of, first of all, one of my wonderful students, Sarah Uriarty-Berry, is going to be singing with me. She is in the concert, and she is singing songs that the conductor did not know this, but that were actually a part of the beginning of my vocal life many, many, many years ago. She's going to be singing some of those. We're going to be doing duets. I'm doing Beauty and the Beast as a duet with her. Then I'm doing some of my own songs, and then there's going to be a lot of Viennese waltzes, and there's going to be a theremin, if you know what that is.
I do.
And then And then we're going to do some surprises at the end, the two of us together. It's going to be just magical for me. I hope that it'll come off okay.
I know people are very excited about this, Marni. Tickets are available right now at capesymphony.org. They are going to sell out, so make sure, the listeners, that you get your tickets quickly. You can also call 508-362-1111. Marni, unfortunately, we're out of time, but this has been an amazing interview. What a great insight into what was happening back in the day, and we're so looking forward to having you here on Cape Cod coming up on January 1st. We wish you the best of the holiday, and again, we look forward to seeing you in just a couple of days. Thanks for being with me today on my program. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And you're listening to the Sunday Journal. I'm your host, Matt Pitta.